Yes, we'll get started. So functions. What are functions? Any idea, Shivam?
No, sir.
Okay. So see, functions. Um, uh, mm, yes. Okay. Sorry, I got an email from these things. I was looking at it. Okay. So functions are is is a way to reuse code. Okay. The purpose of using function is to reuse the code. Okay. So let's say if you want to perform certain things multiple number of times, more than once, right? So instead of writing that code multiple times, we can call that function. For example, if you talk about, we've been using many functions, okay, without knowing that it's called functions, or I have been probably calling them a functions as well. Like you have print, right? So,
Yeah.
when I say print, hello, right? Just by
Yeah.
calling print, I'm able to print it on the screen, correct? So that
Okay.
means print has certain uh, code which is written for it. Okay, so there's a certain code which takes out it takes out the complexity. Okay, now printing on the screen could mean, okay, and you can go and check the print code. It could mean writing 10 lines of code. Okay, so every time you want to display something, you have to write those 10 lines of code. So what
Mm,
happens is those 10 lines of code is written and saved as a name called print. So when we call this print, it actually calls those 10 lines of code which is written behind it. Okay. So from user perspective, it becomes much easy. It is easy to, so the complexity is hidden. First point, the complexity is hidden. We don't need to know what code is behind print. Okay, we are just interested to know what print does, right? And probably we have used print so many times, right? So complexity. Second thing is the lines of code, right? Once it is defined, that's it. You can use it. So in a program, if you're using 5 print, okay, you have to repeat those same code 5 times, right? So that's the purpose of writing a function. Okay, so complexity is hidden from the user. You focus more on developing the logic than struggling to know how to print, right? Or we will focus more on the business problem, right? How do I achieve a certain task which is given, like addition of two numbers, then worry about how to print it on the screen. So that's what Python takes care of it. Okay. So
okay.
let's say, um, you know, okay. So these are the functions like print, input. These are the functions which is written in built. Okay. That means the developers of Python have already written, and we are able, we are using it from day one, right? So print,
Mm,
input, or for that matter, even this, the function that we use for string, the function that we use for list, tuple, right? Those are the functions already written by people who have developed or who are developing the Python. So we call them as inbuilt function. Inbuilt functions will come with the Python installation. Okay, and you don't have to write those functions. Now we can also write our own function. Okay, and that is called
okay.
as user defined function. Okay, so what you see here, since it is already written by developers of Python, it's called inbuilt. Okay, inbuilt functions, and we will learn how to write user defined functions. Okay, so now you know the functions, right? So functions saves your code time, complexity. It makes a process life simple. Okay, so let's say if I want to do certain things more than once, right? So instead of writing that code multiple times, I will write it once and call it whenever I want to call, right? So first thing is, let's say, um, okay, let me write certain lines of code. Okay, so let's say I put print. My name is Lakhan, right? Print 1, 2, 4. Let's say, right? And how are you? Let's see. Okay, so let's say these are 3 lines of code. I want to repeat these 3 lines code multiple times, 4 times, 5 times. I want to repeat it. So first thing what I'll do is I will put this under a name called, so function is just a label that we attach. Okay, so I'm going to create a label. Okay, so first thing is, so when you're, okay, so first thing you have to define the function name. Okay, so def, and let's say I create func one or something like that. Okay, and you always give this simple bracket open and close. So this is how we define. Okay, first we need to define it. Okay, only then you can
So
use it.
why do we define?
So how will Python know that when you call print, you should be working on print, or you should be doing print activities, right? Python will not
Any
know.
other example, sir?
So any other example is, okay, so your name is Shivam, right? Why is your name
Yes.
Shivam? Right?
Because
Your name could have
that's
been
what.
anything. First of all, your name could have been
Yeah.
anything, correct? So
Mm-hmm.
that is one. Second thing is, yes, but you have a name because, okay, if I have to call you, I can directly call you Shivam. I will not say, hey, short, tall, whatever, right? I don't have to
Yeah.
define 100 things. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
same purpose, exactly same purpose. You know, so the definition is like giving a name. That's all. Okay,
Okay.
so you can give any name. Okay, any name to what? Okay, so these 3 lines of code has to be inside this def.
Okay.
So what it means is these 3 lines of code, I'm giving a label called func1.
Okay.
So whenever I call it, okay,
This all three will be like
exactly,
called. Okay.
func1. This is how I
Mm.
call. When I call it, okay, you see, this hello came from here. So let me comment it out. And now you see, okay,
Mm.
it's called. Okay. Now let's say I comment it, I don't call it. Okay. If I don't call you, then you
Mm.
will not say, okay, you will not say
Respond.
anything to
Yeah.
me, right? You will not
Yeah.
reply to me. So this is called definition. Definition has to be done. Okay.
Okay.
But defining doesn't mean that, the program will be called this. But function one is available for us to be used. Okay, that's what definition means, that it is available for us to use. Okay. Okay, one. Second thing that remember is definition should always be before calling. I can't call Shivam and then put your name as Shivam, right? Your
Mm.
name has to be, made Shivam first, then only I can call you Shivam, right? So
Okay.
now I can put, 10 lines of code and call it, doesn't really matter. But I cannot call func1 here and then, uh, put here. Okay, so see, it is already giving error. Okay,
Mm.
this, so it says is not defined. Okay, so definition has to be done first. First you have to write def and then you can call it. Okay, now you can define it just before this or 100 lines before, doesn't really matter, but
Mm.
it has to be defined before.
Okay.
Okay, so this is called simple function. Okay, and I have given some lines of code, and when I call it, those lines of code or the function is executed. Okay, function definition doesn't mean, I told you, right, doesn't mean that it will be called. It will be called only when you call it. Okay, the function will be called only when you call it. Okay, so
Okay.
there are two. Okay, so this is about function. There are two important things that we need to know about function. One is called parameters or arguments. Parameters or arguments, and second thing is a return value. Okay, so how I like to see function is like outsourcing. Now Let's say you want a Xerox copy to be done, right? You have some
Mm.
papers and you want a Xerox. Like if you have a friend's note and you want to take a Xerox. Now, when you have, so when you, one option is that you buy a Xerox machine, correct? And so everybody who wants a Xerox will have to buy a Xerox machine. But that is complex. That is not feasible, right? You
Mm.
for taking print of 10 copies, 10 pages, or even 100 pages, it's not wise to buy a Xerox machine. So you have a Xerox shop. The function is like that. Function is like a Xerox shop. Function is like, which is kept there, and whoever wants it will go there and get it done. Okay. So if I write a
Yeah.
function, I should be able to call it, or you can also call it. Okay. And it's
Mm.
like, okay, Xerox machine, here is my paper. Okay. And give me Xerox. So the values that you pass, okay, let's say you want to buy Apple, let's say. If you want to buy an apple, you don't have to pass anything, right? You go, you buy the apple, and then you get it. Okay. So in that case, it is
Mm.
called as return value. You're getting apples as return value. So the function, okay, when it gives you something back, it's called a return value. Function that takes something from you to input, these are called parameters or arguments, right? To get a Xerox copy, you have to give your pages. You cannot say, give me Xerox copy, right? He'll ask you, okay,
Mm.
give me the pages for which you want Xerox, right? You have to give. So what you give to the function is called arguments, and what you get from function is called return value. Here, the simple bracket that you see here, we actually give all the arguments. So in this function, I have not given any arguments. So this function does not take any argument. Okay.
Oh.
And the return value is always the last line. Okay. Once you are done, you make the payment. That's when you take it and come out, right? That's the last step of
Mm.
anything. So return value has to the last line. If it is not there, okay, if it is not there any return value, okay, it is returning null, none. So the none data structure that we were talking, data type that we were talking about earlier, is when it does not return anything. Okay. So how do you know it does not return anything? Okay. So one thing is, if you have the definition in front of you, you will see that there's nothing called return. Okay. You can generally write return 0. In this case, it is returning 0. Okay. So if it
Okay.
returns, you need to catch it, right? You need to use it for your purpose. So how do you catch it? We will give a variable here, value equal to. Okay. When we say value equal to a function, that means value will take the return value whichever the function is giving us. So here if I go and I say print val, okay, and when I run it, so you see you get 0 here,
So,
right? It is returning 0. Now I
mm.
comment it out. I don't want to return anything. Okay. Now when I run, see you get none. Okay.
Okay.
So none is a data type which is returned when you don't pass anything, So in this case, you get return. So this function is returning none. That means nothing.
Okay.
It doesn't return anything. Okay. And if you want it to return something, you will say return 0. Okay. So we saw a function without return type and with return type. Okay.
Mm.
Without return type, it is returning none. With return type, you can return anything. You can return any data structure that we have learned so far. Int, float,
Okay.
integer, integer, float, string, boolean, complex, list, tuple, dictionary, set. Okay, these are the data structures that we have learned, right? Data types, okay, complex and as well as simple ones. Any of these can be returned. Okay,
Okay.
so it's okay. So yeah, return value. This is an example of a function. So let's write down a function, okay, which actually perform some meaningful work. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a simple function that will uh, add two numbers and give us the result. Okay. So I'm going to say def my sum, something like that. I'll call it. Okay. Colon. And here I will say a equal to 5, b equal to 6. Okay. Sum val equal to a plus b. And I will say print sum is
somewhere. Uh,
somewhere. Okay, sum underscore var. Okay, now I call this my sum. Okay,
mm,
so while calling also you have to give simple bracket. Okay,
okay.
now when I run it, so you see it is printing it here. But let's say you don't
Okay.
want to print it, you want to use it for some other purpose, or you want to pass it to something else, or let's say you have a two-step process where you take the sum and do the average. Let's say this is the thing, then you want to actually perform average and display average. You don't want to display sum, right? So that's why we generally don't write print statements in function, because see, function has to be more generic. Okay, if i
Mm,
if I don't write print, and if I need to print, I can do print in the main. This is called main. Okay, when you don't give any space, it's called main. When you give some spaces, this is that particular function. Okay,
yeah.
so in Java and others, you will see the main function, right? Public void static main,
Uh-huh.
right? So here, okay, when you don't define any function name, it is main. Okay, it is treated as main when you don't define any function name. Okay, if it's part of any function, you will define the function name here. So here you have my sum. Okay, and when I call it, it is printing. Now see, when sometimes you might want to print it. Okay, then that case it's fine, but some cases you may not want to print it. Okay, you want to use it for some other purpose. In that case, print, okay, is out of place, right? So our functions, we need to develop such a way that it is very generic. Okay, so that it can be used by multiple people, right? Or multiple
Okay.
times, or multiple occurrences, right? So what we
Okay.
generally don't do it here. Okay, instead what we'll
Mm-hmm.
do is we'll say return somewhere. Now it is
Okay.
up to us. Okay, so how to catch it? So I'm going to say retval. I'm going to use a variable called retval equal to my sum, and I'm going to say, I don't want to print, so I will perform average. So I'll say avg equal to retval uh, by 2, and you will say print, okay, average is avg, right? So this is where you can actually use a function. Okay, now
Okay.
in this case also you see, these values are, we are reading in the function. Okay, so this function is
Mm-hmm.
usable only when you are adding only 5 and 6. How do you make
Mm,
it more generic? Okay, so one option is, instead of a equal to 5, I can say int of input, right?
okay.
Right, I can do that.
Okay.
But problem here is, again, if you want to read it from the user, then it's fine, right? If you want to, if you want the user to give you the values, but then it's fine. But let's say that these values are coming from somewhere else. Okay, like you have already read it, or you got it from some sources. In that case, getting input from the user is not a good idea. In such case, what we do is we pass the value here. Okay, so what we'll do is, okay, we will, again, we are trying to make it more generic. The purpose of doing it is to make it more generic so that it finds more usage. So instead, what I'll
Mm-hmm.
do is I'll say, okay, I will pass the value to A and B. You calculate the
Okay.
sum and return it to me. Okay, so I'm passing A and B here. So these are called arguments here. I have to pass the argument from here. I can say 5 comma 10 or whatever it is, right? You can use a variable names as well. So you see,
Okay.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm passing 5 and 10 to this. So, this is typically how we use a function. We define a function, and then after def, you write the function name, you pass the values, you pass the variable names to it. Okay, and these variable names will get values. They're called arguments. Okay, and these variable names, or these arguments, will get value when you're calling the function, right? Next time, okay, next time I want to pass, let's say, um, 15 and 10. Okay, and this time I don't want to do average. Okay, I simply want to print the value. Sum is, right? Sum is. So we see that what we are doing is we are making it more generic. We have made it more generic. Okay, Now here I'm using the same function to pass 5 and 10 and find average. Here I'm passing 15 and 10 to find the sum.
Okay, at the same time we can like input two other like two different numbers like
Yeah, anything,
for
right?
A
It's a
and
it's
B.
a
Yeah.
function, okay? It is generic, and it takes those arguments and we can pass the argument, okay,
Mhm.
here,
Okay.
okay, and here I'm using it to find average. Here I'm using it to just find sum.
Some.
So that's the advantage of using a function. You are using function to find, okay, to make you know some set of operation more generalized, okay, right?
Mhm.
So you're avoiding repetition of code, okay, and also for user it becomes easy, right?
Okay.
Right. So this is simple
Yeah.
example. Now, what I'll do is, okay, you want to try something now on your own. Lot of things are there,
Yes.
okay, okay. Um, the way we'll spend some more time. Maybe tomorrow also we'll talk about functions itself. Functions probably will go on for 3 days or so. Here we are,
Okay.
we will be seeing different ways Python handles arguments. Okay. So okay, so what we'll do now is we will write a function which will take any value, okay, and find out, okay, how many elements are there in it.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll write another function called def. I'll say my len and I pass a. Okay. And here I'm going to say return len of a.
Okay.
Right. And
Mm.
here directly I can say um, my len, and here I'll say uh, let's say I pass a list. Okay. And I'll print, let's say red. Okay. And I'm going to do this multiple number of times. Let's see. Okay. I'll pass this as a string. Let's see. Okay. So see this. For okay, for when we pass this as list, the len worked, isn't it? Shivam?
Yes, sir. Sorry, I
Yeah.
was on mute.
So, okay.
Uh,
When we pass a list, len worked. It give a value six elements, right?
yeah.
But len we cannot use it for integer or float values, right? Or even for boolean values, right? So when we're
Mm.
passing 6, it gave us error. Okay, we can't find. Okay, so now you see it knew it, it knows here. Where's my len? Def my len. Okay, let me cut and paste it closer to where we are calling it.
Mm.
Okay, so here, so it knows, okay, oh, it is a list. I need to give, then we don't have to specifically mention it. Okay, okay, it has performed len. Okay, so now let's say if I hide this and when I call it again, right? So for string, it does find the length, right? So it gave us the length here. So you see here, this bracket 1, this is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So the size is 30. Okay, so you can find and get it. Okay, so now if you pass this, it is throwing error, right? How do we catch this error? Okay, how do we catch? This is called as type error. Okay, this is what the error handling talks about. Okay, so we are going to see, okay, how to handle this error, right?
Okay.
So now you tell me which line is giving that error.
Type length 8. So line number 12, it
Is it line
says,
number 12?
yeah, line 12 in my length return a type error object. Int has no
Exactly,
length.
exactly. Okay, line number 12 is giving, okay, this error.
Mm,
Okay, why line number 12? See, here you can pass integer, not a problem. You can read,
okay.
this is not a problem. The problem is when you're doing len of integer is not possible. Okay, so what we do here, okay, in error handling, okay, so okay, there are three types of errors if you look at. Okay, the first type of error is your syntax error. Okay, uh, okay, first type of error is syntax error. That is, you are, yes. So the first type of error is called syntax error, right? Syntax error, we talk about wrong grammar, right, or wrong way to define the uh, um, which does not conform to the standards of Python, right? So Python says that when you start with a double quotation, you have to end with double quotation, right? So if I do one here, this is wrong, clearly wrong, right? So it is easiest of all the errors to catch. Okay, this is easiest of all the errors to catch. So this is syntax error, right? Syntax means the way the programs are written. It says that if you're using a string, whatever quotation you start with, same quotation you have to end with. If I start with double, I have to
Mhm.
end with double. If I start with single, I have to end with single. But here I'm starting
Yeah.
with double, ending with single. This is clearly an error. Okay, so the PyCharm and other IDs can also catch it. Okay, and when I run it, you will see this is showing a syntax error. Okay,
Yeah.
most easiest of the error. Okay, second type of error, okay, which we know is called logical error. Okay, okay, logical error is we want to find average. Okay, but what I do is by mistake, yeah, sorry, okay, by mistake, okay, I put into two. Now this will never ever give you error. Okay, let me comment it out for now. Okay, so it says average is 30. Average of
Mhm.
15 and 10 is 30. Is it possible? No, not 15 and 10,
No.
right? It is actually 5 and 10, right? Average of 5 and 10 is 30. No. Okay.
No.
So this will not give you any error. You have to find it out. Okay. And if you're a little careless, you will not be able to find this error, right? So this is what we
Mm.
call as logical error. And logical errors are the most difficult ones to find. Okay. At the time of coding only you have to catch it. Okay. And if you're little
Okay.
careless, okay, um, okay, your Python will not know that what you want to do, right? The
Mm.
third type of error is called runtime error. Okay, the runtime error. These errors are found, or these errors are actually, displayed at the time of running the program. Okay. Now, for example, here this function, if you see, if I pass the list, okay, you won't get error. If you pass a string, you won't get any error. But when you pass a integer, that's when you're getting error. This is called runtime error. Okay, error will be happen at runtime. Example, divide by zero, right? Divide by zero, if you're
Mhm.
dividing a by b, if you give b value as 1, no error. B value of 0.1, also no error. B value of 0.0001, also no error you will get. But when you say
Okay.
divided by 0, b equal to 0, that's when you get the error. Okay, and these errors are very much possible depending upon how users, you know, enter the value, right? So we have a different way to to manage these runtime errors.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So now in this case, when we pass a integer, we are getting this runtime error, isn't it? So what I'm going to do here is when as you know, okay, so to capture runtime error, you need to know, in fact, you need to predict, okay, you need to predict, okay, which portion can throw error. Okay, we need to understand which portion can throw error. Okay, so as you said,
Okay.
in this case this is giving error. So what I'll do is, instead of doing a return len here, what I'll do, I will find here this value. Okay, so ret val something equal to len of a, and I'll say here return ret val.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to say return ret val. Now this line of 12 is going to give errors. So to
Hmm.
handle it, if you want to handle it, we need to use this try block concept. It's called try except. So the line or lines which can throw error, you put it under try. Okay, so try, and this has to be inside try, so you put it here. That means, okay, you are expecting that this line can give us a runtime error.
Acha. Okay.
Okay, now you give except. Okay, except here is except. Yes. Okay, so except, and I can give some message here. Okay, the message is there is an error. Okay, see, you cannot avoid the error. When the value is integer, you can't get len of integer. Okay, but
Hmm.
you can, what we call as graceful exit. You don't want your program to exit just like that. Your program will continue to function. Okay,
Okay.
your program will continue to function. It will not have an abrupt end. For example, if you give your, yes, so if I give my name in place of phone number, right? Your application should not crash. It should tell that I'm ending it here because you give wrong value. So
Okay.
something so that the user understands, and you are also able to gracefully exit from it. Okay, so this
Hmm.
is called error. Now problem here is, if there's error, this portion will not be called, and this ret value, ret val, is not defined yet, right? So
Okay.
when I run it, okay, so here you do get that message. There is an error here, okay,
Hmm.
but this return value is giving problem because this return value is inside try, right? So what you
Hmm.
could do is, you can give something like this, ret val equal to -1. So
Acha.
now a return value will be -1. Okay,
Okay.
or you can give return value as -9999999, and so that return value is, so size cannot be minus 99, correct? Minus,
Hmm.
minimum size can be 0, right? It cannot be
Zero.
minus
Yeah.
size. So when you see size is minus 90, you know that, okay, something wrong has occurred and the value is not correct. But your
Okay.
program did not end abruptly, it executed all lines of code. So this is called
Hmm.
try and except. So
Okay.
today we have seen how to declare a function, how to use a function, how to pass argument, how to use return value, right? And we also
Yeah.
saw how to handle the error, right?
Errors.
Or the
Yeah.
runtime error. Basically, we are handling the runtime error. We'll stop here today. Tomorrow we'll
Yes. Sure.
continue talking about functions. Okay, and once
Okay.
we're done functions, we'll come back to error handling and we'll see more options. Okay.
Okay.
So in fact, what is expected from now on is that whenever you write a program, error
Hmm.
handling has to be there. Okay,
Okay.
can you think of errors, runtime errors that can happen till now, whatever we have done based on that. So for example, see, when we input numerical values from the user, we use int of input, right? So if the
Huh.
user enters 5, it's fine, not a problem. Okay, your program will not give error. But if a user enters a, you will get
Huh.
error.
Then error it will give.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that's the case where, okay, you need to um put this try. Okay, and every good programmer will definitely put this try block or perform error handling, whichever language it is. Okay, in Python also we have it, in Java also, every language have try
Okay.
the error handling thing, and that is the best thing. If it does not perform as per expect, see, you can't control the user. Even though you're saying enter phone number, somebody can enter name by mistake, right? So the system should not crash just because somebody has entered something else. I'm saying enter your marks. You entered your some name, right? So program should not crash just like that. It should
Hmm.
end in a good manner, giving proper error and things like that. So that's where we use error handling. We'll talk about it once we finish our function topic.
Okay.
Right? We'll end it here. We'll see you tomorrow, same time.
Okay. Thank you,
Uh,
sir.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.